So in my first video, I mentioned that I was better than most people. I'm gonna clarify. Most people my age that I had happened to be around, other people that rapped in my school or hung out in the neighborhood, those were the people I was better than. And when I say typical stuff, and I mentioned Busta Rhymes is so far from typical. He is one of the most unique individuals I believe this culture has the pleasure of, witnessing. Uh, what I meant by typical, meaning that these were the artists that most people listen to. Busta Rhymes, you know, Busta, Woo. This was not underground stuff that people didn't know about, or in this at that point in time, there was a such thing as the underground, and now I'm going to talk about the rave scene. As I said, I would mention in another video, there was something called the underground. You do not have an underground today anymore. The internet destroyed the underground. And I think this is a fascinating thing. I always wanted to talk about this. My friend who became a raver, I didn't know much about it. I knew that I've seen some people wear wide leg pants, but I didn't know necessarily what that was about. When I went to my first rave, I couldn't believe that something so large was yet so unknown. And I was compelled by this. I was enthralled by this. How could this be so under the radar, yet so humongous? The line for the party, my first rave, 1996, February 4th, if I'm not mistaken, it was called the Master Plan at Club Octagon. I believe that's the proper date. I believe it's February 4th, but it was 1996, that much I know. How could there be? The line was about four rows, I guess, long from the wall, like four separate lines wrapping around the block. And the way that they dressed, it was wide leg pants, but then it would be like a Kango. It was very cool to me. There was an element of hip hop to it, but it was very animated. They were like characters. And there was so many of them. Now, as a kid in that time, school was very hard for me because, as it should be, it's not normal to memorize information that is not stimulating you, that's not intriguing to you. It is a natural reaction to drift away from things that don't interest us, to daydream. It's abnormal to be able to memorize a bunch of stuff you don't care about, right? So school for me wasn't learning, it was a process of memorization, which I was not really able to apply myself to. I hated school. I always hated school from as young as I could be. There was no learning going on there. So I was cutting school and I was going to raves. For 2 years, I did not. There was one weekend I missed. I did not miss a single weekend. Money for me was just something that I had to give them to get into the party. I remember specifically Club Vinyl, the party called Unity. And at 5 in the morning, when most people are well asleep, there is a sea of people moving in unison, all dancing, moving in unison together. And that was home for me. And this is where I want to live. I am this. I must live. I am home. I was deeply submersed. I was a hardcore raver. I inspired a lot of people to become ravers and join the scene. I was known. I was at so many parties that if I had no money, which was often how I was going out with no money is beyond me, but yet I'd make it happen somehow or another. But I could go to the party with no money, but I'd enough people there would know me that if I just got $1 from everybody, I could get admission. So if it was $30, $35, these things were expensive. You know, you fly in DJs from Europe and blah, blah, blah. That'd be enough money for me to get in. I didn't do drugs. I had done acid. This will be another video. I did acid, and I had a few times on the 7th, I believe, actually, right? Oddly enough, the 7th, right? But whatever. On the 7th time, I had like a bad trip, and it kept me away from drugs. I was paranoid. People were putting acid in my fucking, everything. But, so I didn't do drugs. I smoked and I would drink. So at about like 4 or 5 in the morning, sometimes 6 in the morning around, because our parties back then, they lasted until, I'll be honest with you, in fact, you could just party all weekend. I mean, you could literally, the party would end at 8 in the morning, then there would be an after party. That would go to about 3, and then, maybe it ends at 3. What do you have? 5 hours until, I'm gonna fuck up my math here, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 5 hours until 8 o'clock when you can go to the next party. That's gonna end. And some raves would start early, 4 or 5. Or you can go to a day party. You could literally be at a party all fucking weekend long. So, at about like 6 o'clock, I'm falling asleep because I'm the only one that's not on drugs. I leave the rave. I get 2 bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches, and everybody's looking at me. Their stomachs turning because they can't understand how I'm hungry because they're all on fucking speed, glass, and acid, and coke, and none of them are fucking hungry. And E and all of that, which is Molly today, whatever. So this was around the time that hip hop was moving into the Puff Daddy era, the Playboy shit, and I was into the hardcore lyricism. So I fell in love with the rave scene, and I became a raver. But I still rapped, which would fuck people's heads up because I looked extremely. I was the real deal. I did not look like you might see a kid with wide legs or something like that. No, when I came through, I was coming through with. It was. You didn't see people that look like me unless you were actually in the rave. People like me, it was just next level. Hardcore. The pants were 70 inches wide. I looked like I was floating. My hair and eyebrows were dyed. I had big plastic chains. It was next level with me. It wasn't just a pair of Jinko pants. And this was what I became a part of because the hip hop scene was not intriguing to me. But ultimately, what I want to discuss in this video is the fact that there no longer is an underground. Nowadays, there is no scene that nobody knows about. The computer got rid of everything. So, luckily for me, I was alive at the time where there was an underground. Now, when you're going out to parties and you're going out to clubs, you're gonna get into dancing, and I was into, what we used to do was called liquid, and liquid got me into popping. See, it all comes full circle. The rave scene, the techno, the house, the acid, the trance, all of that brought me back to hip hop because I was doing liquid. Then I saw people popping, and it was like, I have to learn that. Which ultimately, I'm going to save that one for the next video.